Hi, today I thought I would show you guys a project that I've been working on that pertains to the channel. As you can see on my channel, I've been posting stuff about live steam, and you can see me running full-size steam traction engines, and you saw a video of me running my little steam model, not this one. But recently, this summer, I bought this steam locomotive model with the intentions of restoring it. I was told by the previous owner that the boiler was no good, but that the running gear had been completely rebuilt. Here's a couple pictures of the locomotive. There you can see it has a steam-powered air pump on the side. And you can see a pipe that I just laid in there just for kind of reference. After I got it to the place I was going to be working on it with, I tested it out on air to see what it would do. And this is what it ended up being. As you can see, that sounded very worn out. But anyway, to continue, there's a picture of it up on the stand that I was and am actually working on it at this moment. There's another picture of the close-up of the running gear of it. It was missing a lot of bolts and stuff. So when I got to looking at the parts I had the original boiler. But the only catch was it had been cut in half. I have no clue why the previous owner cut it in half, because to me that's not something that you would usually do. And so anyway, I just continued inspecting it, and I noticed that there was a lot of scale in between the tubes. And I started looking at it closer and closer, and I realized that the boiler actually was not bad. It was the tubes inside the boiler that were bad, because as you can see pictured here, all the scale from people not maintaining it properly had built up around the tubes, causing them to rot out and leak, which made somebody think that the boiler was no good, when in terms, all it needed was new tubes. So instead of me putting in all the work to make a brand new boiler, I decided to use the back half of the firebox end of the original boiler and put a new barrel and dome and put 2 new tube sheets in it, seeing as they were wrecked from me trying to take the tubes out, which is kind of what you see pictured here. Once I decided to do that, I took all the tubes out and I cut out the back tube sheet to leave room for a new one, and I started to clean out the scale from inside the boiler. Here are 2 pictures of me in the process of cleaning the scale out of the boiler. You can see that it looks rusty, but that's actually only because it was sitting outside for a little bit while I was working on it. And actually, a lot of it was just scale on it that came off. You can see that on some parts it cleaned up quite nicely, and the metal is actually still quite thick and perfectly usable for me to use to put on the new boiler. To do that, I bought a barrel, as pictured, and pipe and a pipe cap for the dome, and some boilerplate to make 2 new tube sheets, which I ended up spending a lot of time figuring out a good tube layout which would give me the most heating surface so it would run most efficiently. Once I figured that out, I drilled both these on the mill to what you see here, and turned the front tube sheet on the lathe to make a bevel so it could be welded in, so it'd be ready for the welder. Here is a picture of what the underside of the dome would look like on the boiler end, with the steam pipe that goes to the throttle, or the dry pipe, and all the holes around it that would fill the dome with steam, so that the dry pipe could actually pick it up and send it to the throttle. The reason why we do this is so that there's less water that gets in the steam, so that you don't pump water into your cylinders. That's the idea. So after this, as I said before, I don't really have any pictures of it, but the running gear was not rebuilt, and it was completely worn out, and I found that out. So what I ended up doing is I ended up rebuilding all the main rod bushings for basically everything, but left the valve gear alone, and then ran it to test it with still the very worn out valve gear, which you're going to see right here.
Go for it. hurts too much.
After I did that, I decided it was time to start rebuilding the valve gear. So I started on that, and I made a link block for my Walschaerts valve gear as to rebuild it so that it would run properly again. I made tons of other little bushings and pins with help. Just note that all of this was done with lots of help by some very close friends of mine, and it wouldn't be possible without them. But like I said, I made tons of little pins and bushings for the valve gear. And after I was done those, I started looking, and I noticed that the valve rod that actually connects the actual valve that, obviously admits steam into the cylinder at the right time, I noticed it was bent down. So I took the whole valve cover off and discovered that the valve inside, as you can see here. Now this isn't a good design because the valve rod is off to the side and not in the center of the valve like you would want it to be. Now this is about how far I've gotten on the project, and so I don't really have much else to say other than this. This is kind of where I'm at on it. And I will update you guys once I get the valve gear all put back together and everything all sorted where I can run it again, and I can show you the final result of what it's going to look like running on air, which of course later I will be running on steam. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.